Chris Eubank Jr., Spike O'Sullivan, the gloves are off. Quick video to give you my thoughts and impressions as to that programme. For a start, Spike O'Sullivan, you know, I hate to be critical on the guy, but he is disappointing on these big events. You know, first we had the press conference where he barely said anything, and now we have the gloves are off. I mean, surely someone should have told him that the whole point of the gloves are off is to hype a fight and to promote it. You know, certainly Chris Eubank Jr. got the message, but Spike O'Sullivan, you know, he's usually such a loud, brass individual. You know, he's known for being a bit of a showman, and he seems to have, the wind seems to have completely gone out of his sails on the build-up to this fight. You know, he's saying things like, it's nothing personal against Chris Eubank Jr., you know, I just wanted to call him out to get a big fight and to get a big payday. You know, all of that sort of chat, really, which is a bit disappointing. And to me, he does look a bit nervy. He does look a bit scared by Eubank. And possibly he looks a bit overawed by the occasion. You know, he's been in fights before. He's fought, I saw him fight on the Chisora Hay undercard. You know, that was a big event. And I saw him fight against Billy Joe Saunders. You know, that was a big event. But I guess in terms of the scale of the event, this is, you know, even though those fighters, you know, Billy Joe Saunders obviously beat Chris Eubank Jr., but even putting that aside, this is probably a bigger event, and you know, the eye of the public is more on him on this occasion than previously. You know, conversely, while Spike O'Sullivan seems to be a bit shy and retiring ahead of this fight, Chris Eubank Jr. is really coming out of, you know, coming out of his cell here, and Chris Eubank Jr. is becoming quite a showman, which is actually good to see. You know, I've always, you know, in WWE sometimes you have a villain, and the villain will be kind of this like cold, brooding, difficult character, and you'll have like the flamboyant manager who represents them. That's kind of how I've viewed Chris Eubank Jr. in the past. You know, not too much of a talker, not too much of a character. You know, his father would do all of the sort of comedy, and his father would do all of the, you know, the sort of hyping behind the scenes, and Eubank Jr. would more just do the fighting. Maybe it's because his father's in the jungle, you know, doing I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. But for some reason, Chris Eubank Jr. has really come into his own here. You know, I don't know if it's because his father's absent. I don't know if it's because he, you know, has been told to act up by Eddie Hearn, but he came out straight away and the gloves are off and started putting it on Spike, you know, calling him out. And he was, you know, he won this battle, the gloves are off battle. You know, there was sort of, he said he could tell that Spike was scared of him. You know, he asked Spike to explain himself. He went on and on about how Spike had lost the opportunity to face off with him because Spike kissed a previous opponent during a face-off. And yeah, I mean, Chris Eubank Jr., yeah, was quite vocal about the point that Spike was such a big mouth previously, and now he's kind of gone all quiet. And yeah, fair play to Chris Eubank Jr. He's obviously an intelligent guy. He's obviously a capable talker in his own right, and he's developing. You know, he seems to have grown in confidence, and he's developing. One side note is that, you know, I've always thought of Spike as a very big middleweight. You know, I remember when he fought Fitzgerald, and I think he came in at some sort of catchweight between the two weights, and I've always thought of him as a big guy. But looking at these two up against each other, both at the gloves are off and at the press conference, it certainly appears to my eye that Chris Eubank Jr. is a very, very big middleweight, because he seems to make Spike look very small, both physically in terms of his, you know, his width, but also in terms of his height. You know, I think Eubank Jr. is going to have a substantial size advantage in the ring, and you know, all Spike is saying is, you know, Spike is saying we've beat the Eubanks before, which is reference to his training team, Pascal and Steve Collins, obviously, who fought Chris Eubank Sr. And all he's saying is, I'm going to knock you out. I'm going to knock you out. At one point, Eubank Jr. tells him, why don't you get a t-shirt with that printed on it? You love saying it so much. But it's true. That's kind of all Spike has really said in the lead-up to this fight. I'm going to knock you out. I'm going to knock you out. And the problem is, that's actually how Spike fights. You know, he comes in, he throws big haymakers, but there isn't really any subtlety to his game. There isn't really any plan B. He knows he's not going to outbox Chris Eubank Jr. He knows he's not going to outmaneuver him, outjab him. His chance is a puncher's chance. When we've seen Spike step up in levels before, it's questionable how easy is it for him to land one of these big punches. You know, we won't go into that now because I'll do a full pre-fight analysis and prediction video in the run-up to the fight. But, you know, effectively, that's all Spike's saying. You know, he's like a parrot going over again, I'm going to knock him out, I'm going to knock him out. And it kind of makes you concerned that Spike is looking at this from a sort of very one-dimensional viewpoint as a fighter. Chris Eubank Jr. looks so composed, so comfortable, so relaxed. You know, I'm not seeing any signs of nerves from him. He looks like a man who knows his business and a man who's totally assured in, you know, in what he's doing. If you thought Chris Eubank Jr. was going to win this fight to begin with, your confidence can only be increased having seen this gloves are off. Let me know your thoughts. Who do you think won the psychological battle here? Did you enjoy it? Was it good programming? Yeah, for me it takes two to tango. Chris Eubank Jr. put on a very, very good show, but it could have been more entertaining if Spike had come out of his box a bit more. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching.